Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, sitting in for Lisa K. Donner. And joining me today are Andrew Moran, Jeff Charles, Graham Noble, and Dave Patterson. This is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Folks just recently went a little nuts as the Powerball reached $2 billion. But what many of them do not know is that the Biden administration gave away Willy Wonka's golden ticket already. The high-stakes spoils of the game actually went into the coffers of the Taliban. Yes, that Taliban. And our military affairs correspondent, the dashing Dave Patterson, is here to explain.
Thank you, Sarah. Actually, you're precisely right. The Biden administration gave away the $1.1 billion jackpot to the Taliban because they are such wonderful friends. You know, I think there are a couple of things that people need to realize is that that's perfectly consistent with the unrealistic worldview that the Biden administration and more significantly, the Department of State for the U.S. has. They look at the world the way they wished it were, not the way it really is. And so consequently, they think by giving away $1.1 billion, they can say to the Taliban, why can't we all just hold hands, sit down, and be friends? Well, we can't. And the reason is very simple. These people, Iran, Russia, China, the Taliban, they are enemies. They are not pacing challenges, the way the Pentagon would like to say. They are, in fact, threats to the United States. But there are two things, I think, that you need to take away from what has happened in Afghanistan. And the first, of course, is that the Biden administration wants to buy friendship with money, and that simply won't work. But the second and more troubling is that the cabinet level officials, we now find out from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, has pointed out in his latest report, is that you have cabinet level officials who are actively obstructing the work of the Inspector General to find out exactly how taxpayer monies are being spent and why. This is very troubling, and everyone should realize that this is not normal order. This is obstruction of a government agency, and unlike in past reports, the Inspector General must be somewhat upset because he named the Treasury Department, the United States Agency for International Development, and of course, the State Department as the culprits. This is unusual.
Well, the State Department seems to be having some issues lately. Jeff, what do you got? Tell me what you think about this.
I mean, I don't think there's any need to be so hard on the Biden administration. They're thinking outside of the box. They're trying a brand new strategy. You ever hear that saying, "Kill them with kindness"? I think that's what Biden's trying to do. He's trying to be so nice to them that they just die off and don't bother us anymore. Maybe that's what he's thinking. Maybe in that mind of his, that's what he thinks is going to happen. But remember when Trump got into trouble because he met with leaders of the Taliban? They were all mad about that. But it's okay to give them billions of dollars worth of military equipment when we leave Afghanistan. And it's even okay to give them this lottery payment. It's beautiful. I don't understand why. Well, I do understand. I mean, he gets away with it because the media is always going to cover for him. So, I mean, none of this is surprising at all. I wouldn't be surprised if he sends them fruit baskets and lollipops in the future.
I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with both Dave and Jeff here. I'm not one to defend the Biden administration in any regard at all. But U.S. foreign policy, this is consistent of U.S. foreign policy for years. The U.S. government is giving dictators, corrupt governments, billions of dollars every year. They gave it to Bashar from Pakistan. They gave him $10 billion. They had to borrow that from China to give it to him. They give the Saudi Arabia, they give him security worth $1 billion a year to defend from Iran. If you go back in history, in 1979, under Operation Cyclone, Jimmy Carter, he helped found the Taliban. They spent $2 billion to the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviet Union. So to think that this is just a Biden policy, I mean, perhaps Dave could correct me if I'm wrong here, but to consider that this is just a Biden policy, I disagree with that, because U.S. foreign policy is just give billions to everyone. You look at the every year the Senator Rand Paul report, the Festivus report. He's always finding how the U.S. government's giving these other corrupt governments $20 million here, $50 million, $100 million. So I don't know how this is Biden's fault when that's just standard policy in Washington.
You probably are right in the aggregate, and if you look at the State Department, you see career professionals and foreign policy experts stabbing each other in the back to try to get the chair, the Alger Hiss chair for fine diplomacy. But I think it's a matter of degree, and it seems to be far more prevalent in progressive Democratic administrations than in others. I would offer up, how do you get Iran to agree with you on the nuclear agreement? Oh, well, you send a pallet load of real American dollars, greenbacks, and in the $1 billion range. And so this is far more prevalent, I think, in among the Democrats, and because they hold in such high esteem, with all due respect to Ivy League graduates, but the Northeastern large university graduates in foreign policy, they see far more common cause with these folks. And the fact is that regardless of administration, we have never bought friendship, with the exception of perhaps the Marshall Plan, but the patina on that is wavering.
Well, the Saudis, the U.S. is buying friendship there. I mean, Biden scaled back slightly the security in the kingdom. And what's Saudi Arabia doing now? They're they're selling the energy heading east. They're going to Asia. They're making fun of Biden by slashing sales to the United States. So I think in that regard, U.S. buying friendship for years, but it hasn't worked out.
We can always, point to specific examples, which I just did, and now I'm sorry I did that. But as a common point of view in foreign policy, I think that the idea that this idea that we're going to operate in a world the way we wished it were, as opposed to the way it really is, has not served us well, regardless of administration. But I think that the Biden administration is by far the poster child, or the picture on the milk bottle, depending on whether you're in Wisconsin or not.
All right, Graham, I got to hear from you. You were jumping and biting and gnashing your teeth. So what were you trying to get across to us?
I just think one thing that a lot of people are perhaps losing sight of is that the Biden administration's approach to dealing with both Iran and with the Taliban, I believe their kind of long-term goal is to essentially normalize Islamist extremism. And I think, one thing that people in America at least haven't been focused on much over the last, 2 or 3 years is the problem of Islamist extremism. And that should be partitioned off from any kind of general comment on the Muslim population of the world. There are a lot of Muslims in the world, and I've spent a lot of time in various different Muslim countries. I have actually fought both against and alongside Muslim forces in different conflicts, and I have a great deal of respect for a lot of Muslims. But there is a big difference between being a Muslim and being an Islamist, and these Islamists are still extremely dangerous people. They have absolutely no regard whatsoever for human rights. And at the end of the day, I hate using that word, but I hate using that phrase. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is, when all's said and done, and all those other cliches, they still want to kill us because we don't believe, we don't see the world the way they do. And I think that's a problem. And I think this whole getting cozy, kind of trying to give the Iranians a break and trying to give the Taliban a break and giving them a bunch of money and pretending that we can be friends with them. As Dave points out, that's not possible, no matter how much money we give them. It's all part of, I believe it's all part of trying to numb everybody to the still existing danger that these people pose to Western society in general and to the US in particular.
And Graham, I think to your point, where you see the nexus of taking the opportunity to buy friends and the rise of Islamist extremists come together was the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri. I mean, here we leave 1.1 billion, and the Taliban says, "Oh yes, we will take care of terrorists in our country." And of course, what they meant was, we're going to take care of terrorists in our country, and set al-Zawahiri up in a condominium. And thankfully, the CIA and a drone strike took him out on his lanai. But you can see how that event is the nexus of trying to buy friendship and dealing with entities that are diametrically opposed to the way in which the United States would like to see the world.
Somehow folks aren't as upset about this as our panel is. What happened to the oversight? Yeah, it looks like the Taliban is doing all that for us nowadays. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio. I'm Sarah Cowgill, filling in for Lisa K. Donner. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.